When you are driving alone on a mountain road at night, there's something terrifying about the silence. No cars in sight, no street lights, just fog curling against your windshield. That's how my journey began. I thought it was only going to be a company retreat, but what happened at the remote hotel in the mountains still lingers in my memory today. Good evening, fellow creeps. Welcome to another episode here on Creepy with Coffee. I'm Kim, your storyteller. Well, tonight's story, it's about a retreat, or rather about a stay at a remote hotel. Well, like usual, before we get on to the story, if you have yet to subscribe, please do help me subscribe and also like this content. Now, let's get on to the story.
This is Creepy with Coffee.
Recently, I went for a company retreat. You know how it usually is with these things. Whenever they call it a retreat, it almost always held at some remote hotel. And the hotel is never near the office. It's usually far away, tucked into some secluded location, often with that eerie, unsettling atmosphere. Only then does it feel like a real retreat. I left my house around 5:30 in the evening. According to Waze, it would take me about 2 hours to reach the hotel. The location was deep in the mountainous area, away from the bustle of the city. From the start of my journey, rain poured heavily. Sheets of rain lashed against my windshield, but I wasn't panicked. I kept calm, driving at a steady pace. I wasn't rushing. After all, the program that night wasn't supposed to begin yet. That gave me more reason to drive leisurely. Well, no reason to speed. As I got closer to the mountainous roads, I noticed fewer and fewer cars on the road. Vehicles became rare. I occasionally see cars coming down from the mountains, but heading up, it felt like I'm the only one. No cars behind me, none ahead of me. The road itself began to wind sharply, curling around the hills. Thick fog started to drift in, blanketing the path. Darkness began to creep over the road as the sun disappeared behind the clouds and ridges. There weren't any street lights either, so the mountain road felt even more isolated. I tried to remain composed, but deep down a sense of unease started creeping in. Being the only one on that lonely road didn't feel right. My mind started wondering, what if this wasn't the way to the hotel? What if Waze had led me into some hidden Bunyan villages? A mythical hidden village said to belong to the supernatural beings in Malay folklore. Anyone who enters isn't supposed to find their way back. I shook the thought away, gripping the wheel tighter. The rain eased as I drove further up, though the mist stayed heavy. Finally, at around 7:30 p.m., I arrived at the hotel safely. I checked in without issue and made my way to the room on the 5th floor. The room itself was rather small, like an attic space, but honestly, I don't mind. I was staying alone, so I didn't need a large room. In fact, sometimes being in a big empty hotel room by yourself feels even scarier. And this hotel, I've heard, was rumored to be haunted. Smaller was safer in my mind. That night, contrary to what we were told earlier, the program actually began. They had said we'd be free that evening, but didn't really mind. What else am I going to do, right? I wouldn't have much to do anyway. Alone in my room, I wouldn't want to sit around with nothing going on. The program wrapped up late, and afterwards, I returned to my room, prayed, and get ready for bed. To my relief, nothing strange happened that night. No unexplainable noises, no flickering lights. I slept peacefully until morning. At 6:30 a.m., I woke up, showered, prayed, and headed down for breakfast. This is where the strange stories begin. Over breakfast, one of my friends asked me, "Hey, were you up okay driving up last night?" I told him the truth. Yeah, nothing happened. Just foggy, dark, and kind of creepy, but that's all. He frowned and leaned closer. Weird. For me, the whole way up here, My car smelled like perfume, a strong, sweet, floral scent. But it wasn't from my car air freshener, because I have none. I gave him a small laugh. Maybe you spilled some perfume earlier without realizing it? Best not to think too much about it. If you start overthinking, your mind will go places it doesn't need to. I even told him it's the same thing in a hotel. If, let's say, the bathroom tap suddenly turns on by itself at night, just assume the pipe is faulty. Don't make it a ghost story for yourself. Why scare yourself when you don't have to? Well, my friend or colleague, he nodded, though his expression suggested he wasn't fully convinced. The first session of the retreat began as usual that morning. Nothing felt out of place, and by the time we broke for coffee around 10 a.m., the place was buzzing with chatter. Word had spread that one of the participants had been disturbed the night before. I don't want to ride on the rumors, so I decided to go straight to the source and ask the person myself. This is a story that I got from him, and I'm sharing it exactly as he told me. After the evening program ended, he returned to his room as usual. He prepared for bed, but he couldn't fall asleep. He felt restless, uneasy, as if something unseen was pressing down on him. It wasn't until around midnight that his eyes finally grew heavy. But as he was about to doze off, he suddenly heard a sound. It was sharp, unmistakable, the crumpling of a plastic water bottle. The noise of it being crushed inside a trash bin. He froze. His trash bin was near the foot of the bed. He stared at it under the dim light, but nothing seemed out of place. He told himself it was nothing and forced himself to lie back down. But after that, sleep became impossible. His whole body felt tense, every small creak in the room putting him on edge. And around 5 a.m., things escalated. He said he felt movement. At first, it was faint. The mattress on the bed next to him began to shift as though someone walked into the room and sat on the mattress. But you see, he was staying alone. The shifting grew stronger. Now it felt like something was bouncing, hopping on the bed. The mattress rose and fell in quick jerks like a child was jumping on it. The bouncing became louder, more aggressive. Then suddenly, whatever it was leapt onto his bed. He felt the weight crashing down on him, the mattress sinking beneath him as if something invisible was jumping wildly at his side. Panic, he swung his arm wildly as though trying to shove something off. Then he bolted upright, grabbed his things in a frenzy, and dashed out of the room. I asked him, "Where do you go after that?" He looked at me wide, but with exhausted eyes, saying, "I slept in my car, boss." By then, the entire group had heard his stories. The atmosphere changed. Nervous glances, whispers. Everyone was uneasy, especially since we still had one more night to endure at the hotel. Some of the women in our group decided not to risk it. They made arrangements to share rooms, refusing to sleep alone that night. For me, I stayed calm. Maybe it was denial, or maybe I was just stubborn, but I kept my composure. I told myself the same thing I told my colleague earlier on. Don't feed the fear. But deep inside, I couldn't help but wonder if one person had been disturbed, would more of us experience the same before this retreat ended? Well, I'm not sure whether there is a second part of this story or not, because the story ended like this. Okay, my take on the story. You see, things like this always happen at a old or remote hotel. Why? I do not know whether you guys heard this before. When I was younger, my parents will always tell me to let sunshine into the room, whether it is a living room, bedroom, right? Especially your living space. You have to let sunshine in. Why? It's because it's supposed to get the yin energy away, because the sun carries the yang energy. When spaces that has accumulated a lot of yin energy, that is when it attracts these entities. And you see, hotel rooms, usually when it's not occupied, it's covered. No sunshine will let in. That is when yin energy was accumulated. Probably the person who experienced whatever it was in the story, it could be his or her room, further. And not only it was not exposed to the yang energy, the remoteness of the room could have contributed it as well. Well, what do you think about the story? Let me know down below in the comments. Until the next episode now, good night.